Hey there guys, Jared here. In today's video we're going to be talking to you about the tactical sort of areas of scaling out your sales systems to 100 grand a month. So essentially within this there's some, once you start getting those calls into the calendar, once you start scale things out, you've got sales teams, things like that in the place, you've really got to look at the process, the sales systems behind that to see exactly what's going on, and you want to iron out a lot of the gaps and stuff like that that may come into play from this particular process. So essentially what we want to do in this video, we're going to show you exactly all this sort of stuff so you're going to get a bit of an understanding. So number one, once the leads are generated, what's the process in terms of being able to bring that lead in to the calendar, where's the calling systems, things like that. So essentially what we do is we use a system called Close.io. You probably want to write that down. That particular system is a complete online system, automated system. It's got an auto dialer, things like that in it as well. So as soon as a booking goes into the calendar, what happens is it just goes directly across to Close.io, and we use that for a calling system. So write that down. So first real steps, right, is you really want to go through and you want to understand what's the process that your client goes through. So when the lead, when your client sees the ad, right, what's the next process for your client? So when they see the ad, okay, is it a booking, right? So they get an opportunity to book something, or do they download it? Right, so when they go through, they book, they go through and they answer some questions. Right, they go through and they answer some questions, and then they choose a time, right? Right, so when they're going through that particular sales process, once the time has actually been allocated, what's the process there? Okay, so there'll be a distance now between the time allocated to the area here where the actual booking is. Okay, so, and that could be, call it 2 days. Right? So a lot can happen in 2 days. 48 hours, that's a long time. A lot can happen within that time. So essentially what you want to do is you want to make sure that you've got systems in place to make sure that this person's going to show up. Right? Now, with relation to bookings, what we like to do is we like to have a phone call in between. We like a few touch points, right? Just to make sure that this person's going to be a right fit for the call as well. So essentially within that 2 day period, so when the lead's sort of generated, they just pick a time, we have a call there. Right? Very important to have that touch point, and that's just done by a lot of our appointment setters and people like that as well. A lot of the time what we like to do within the sales process as well is have why did I say 2 days? A two-step sales process. Right? So essentially then what happens is from the ad, book in, they answer some questions, they go through, they book a time, they get a phone call. On the second day, when they actually, there's 2 days between showing up, between that time and booking, let's just say. It might even be 3 or 4 days that someone chooses, okay, so a lot happens. So essentially what you want to do is you want to make sure that you've got phone calls and things like that being made here, and then you want to make sure that it's two-step and at least and then essentially what you want to do is you want to have a system between this part here. Now, within that particular process, what you would do is you would have follow-up emails. Remember on the last video we spoke about credibility, we spoke about be able to create rapport with people, let them know that we understand where they're at, that type of stuff. And essentially what we want to do within this process here is you want a system in between. So you want some automation in the back end of it as well. So you want to make sure that you've got emails hitting to credibility, you want to make sure you've got emails there like testimonials, things like that being sent across to the client. And more importantly, you want to go through and you want to have also another confirmation email saying, you know, are you going to rock up, like making sure that they're going to rock up on the call as well. Please reply yes. So this particular process here is like the first step of the actual sales process itself. Now, I mentioned to you before that we've got a system that we use called Close.io. Now that particular system as well allows you to take notes, it allows you to call the client directly from it, allows you to send emails, things like that as well. Now we've got a lot of automation within a lot of that side of things as well, where and our clients install the exact same thing as well. So within that particular process we've got things like We've got automated already set up email, so if someone wants some information being sent to them, it's just completely automated. You just send that completely off. Also within that second point as well, we've got the ability there to use a power dialer to call more clients through that particular process as well. Coming back to sales systems though, so within this, once the call is booked, right, I mentioned to you before that with the booking calls, you want to make sure that you've got, or not the booking calls, within the actual sales calls, you want to make sure that you're providing, you've got a scripted, in-depth process to go through. So these booking times, right, well, people call them sales calls. We don't call them sales calls at all. They're not sales calls because we map out a plan for people as well within what we do. So, and we do that for completely free. I don't know anyone else that's doing that. Everyone else within the industry at the moment, within the coaching consulting industry, they're wondering why they don't close as many sales and things like that. Is because they don't provide value through what they do. So a lot of people look like they're doing well, but they're not. So within this sales process, I mentioned to you before that you must have a script, right? Within this particular process here for the booking. So if you've got a script, the script gives you predictability. So when you've got salespeople, people like that are taking care of the calls for you, you want to make sure that they follow a process that you know works. These particular ones, on the first call with our process, you look at a 50% close ratio for those types of calls on the first call. Because really what's happened through a lot of our marketing processes, which you'll see on other videos as well, is that it already builds plenty of credibility and plenty of red hot people that are coming to you wanting help. So within this, you want to make sure that you've got that process scripted. You want to make sure that it provides predictability around what you do as well. You want to make sure that you've got that particular process in place. So once it goes through that, there will be, the next point will be sale, right? Or it'll be, you know, follow-up that will be needed. Cool. Or it will be that you'll also need a sequence here. Right? Especially with your sales process, you want to make sure that you've got these back-end sequences from a sales perspective as well to continue to check in with people, continue to provide value to them, and continue to provide them more information that's going to be able to help them with the problem that you solve. So within this particular process, guys, it is very in-depth. There is a little bit more to it all as well, strategically around how you go about putting a lot of the automation and things like that in place. However, in the grand scheme of things, you follow this particular process, it'll give you the result that you desire. So, which essentially, when you're looking to scale things out, when you're looking to scale to 50 to 100 grand a month in sales, what's going to be really important for you is getting this process put in place properly. Because there's things that will break down within this process. When you get to 100 grand, a lot of the payment systems and payment processes themselves that you use at the moment will break down, guaranteed. We can give you all of those processes because we've gone through those processes already, and a lot of those processes, I'll tell you, it'll be a headache for you when you get to 100 grand a month, being able to process that volume. So essentially, what you want to make sure that you do, the breakdowns will be within this process. So from the time that they book the call to the time of the booking, that process will break. Alternatively, it will be from the sales, the scripting process. If you haven't got that predictability there, you'll be doing 10, 20, 30 calls a week and not closing any sales, or you'll be closing it at 10%. It'll still be profitable, but however, if you got that with predictability to 50%, it can make the difference of 30, 40, 50 grand, like quite a lot in sales volume. So that part of it there, you want to make sure that's predictable, and then you want to make sure that, for the 50% that don't purchase, you want to make sure there's sequences there on the back end to be able to continue to provide value, because these people, they might not buy now, however they will buy in 6 months time, 12 months time. We've had conversations with people 5 years ago, and they've just got started today. So a lot of this, guys, is really, really important to make sure that you do have, because I mean, if you're spending good money here on the ad side of things, like you might be spending anywhere from say 20 to 150 per appointment into your calendar at the moment. you might even be spending, say, 400 to 500 at the moment per appointment or per sale into your calendar. That would be more. If you're anything like that, there's definitely gaps here in the whole system. So really, you want to be around that sort of $100 to $200 per sale when it comes to coaching and consulting services specifically. So, and if you're not doing that at the moment, there's some real gaps here in the process. So just as a quick summary, guys, you want to make sure that from this booking, answer questions within that booking, then they go through, check a time, make sure there's a call here, make sure there's a touch point. Within this particular 2-day point, you want to make sure that you've got systems in place to be able to continue to remind these people, and that would be both 2 points of contact, so text and email as well. So you make sure you've got the system there in place just to ensure that they show up. Within this booking call, make sure that you've got it scripted, okay? Especially if you've got salespeople, don't rely on them to be able to do the process themselves. You want to make sure that you've got it scripted and make sure that it's predictable. And then from that, make sure that you've got your follow-up sequences and make sure there's physical follow-up calls, okay? We like to do follow-ups depending on when the person's come through, weekly, even sometimes daily, just to touch base with, especially if they've said, okay, look, just give us a couple of days or whatever that is. But if that's the case, you want to make sure that you've scaled out and you've got a predictable closing process within that, or objection handling process as well, because the more that you can look to help people, the more that you have that respect for people in order to have the hard conversations, the more your business is going to grow, and the more the people that you're going to help and impact, more importantly. So make sure you got the follow-up sequences, make sure you're actually doing follow-up calls, that type of stuff as well. Make sure your sales teams are doing that. It's very important for the after-sales side of things, because as I said to you before, guys, in the last, like we've had people come to us 5 years ago and now come in and purchased, and it's only because of these particular processes and keeping in front of mind. So I hope you found value in this particular live training today, guys. Remember, if you don't fight for your own freedom, nobody else will. So get out there, take action, make it happen, and we'll see you on the next video. Cheers.